So welcome. Here we are, myself, Dr. Giles Croft, and my chum, Dr. Brian McElroy, who's a practicing GP. And today we're going to have a conversation about the simplicity of mental health, aren't we? We're going to talk about what mental health is and where we find it and what takes us away from it, and how we can experience more of it. How does that sound, Brian?
Yeah, that sounds spot on, Giles. I think it's a really, really important conversation. I think it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I think it's really nice that we have this kind of perhaps fresh conversation around what mental health actually is,
Hmm.
because there is so many ideas around it, really, isn't there?
Hmm.
And I really like a definition that you just shared with me, and I'll leave you say it because it's just so simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's not mine. I heard someone else say it, but we can think of mental health as contentment with what is. Mental health is contentment with what is, which really does kind of strip away all the complexity and get us back to looking at what what we actually experience as human beings. And what we experience as human beings is one moment after another. There's literally that's what life is. It's one moment after another, and we have a felt experience of that. So if we are content with what is, with each of those moments as they come along, then surely that is mental health. That would be the end of mental illness, surely. If I appreciate it's a big if, but if every human being on planet Earth was content with what is in each moment that came along, then that would be mental health across the board.
Yeah, it's really interesting because first of all, when you describe it, mental health is contentment with what is. I almost feel myself slowing down inside. So it's a definition that almost brings about a change, because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so it's nothing else but that. That if that's what we're seeking, then here it is, then it's just this simplicity of if we can be content with what is, then we have it. There's no more there's no more even need for tomorrow, or there's no more need for another event or another this or that. It's just that. And second of all, it points to the for me the fact that if mental health is something, it's always, as you described, a subjective experience. You can't define it as you're mentally healthy if you have this, that, or the other thing, or if you're functioning this, that, or the other way. So it's a subjective experience. It's your experience with what is moment to moment, which is fantastic because we all know people who could be near death or could have really severe illness or have really, something really rubbish could have happened, but somehow they have found a way of dealing with it or a peacefulness or an acceptance of that situation, which maybe in from the kind of more conventional or conditioned mind seems like something that you could never be content with. So it really turns things, flips things on their head from that point of view as well, which I really like. Um, so yeah, I think it's a really nice working definition and a really good starting point for this conversation.
I mean, the one of the words that really jumped out at me when you were talking then was seeking. You said the peace of mind that we're seeking, and and that's important to kind of like just look at, I think, because there's something about looking for something, seeking something, craving something, needing something that in a way does take us away from what it is that we're seeking. Because to seek something, so if mental health is contentment with what is, so each moment that comes along we're content, And this is nothing fancy or difficult to achieve or anything. We all experience this all the time. We just don't really pay it that much attention. So if we think back to the last time that we did feel, real peace of mind, real calm, where we didn't have anything on our mind, and everything just seemed okay, and it might have been very, very fleeting. But we can then look at, well, what is it that has taken us away from that? And in a way, it's the seeking of the very thing that we're experiencing that's taking us away from it. It's the thought that, oh, this feels nice, but maybe it, but would it, I don't know, what happens when we get that really nice, calm feeling that, to be fair, is our default. It's there all the time. This is the message, I think, from today, isn't it, Brian? Is that mental health is just there. It's not something that can get taken away from you. So if that's the default, and we have that nice, calm, peaceful feeling, it's only ever a thought that, oh yeah, but but I've still got that thing going on. This situation, we get taken out of the present moment, and we're off in the future, or but I shouldn't be feeling peaceful and calm because that terrible thing happened, and because of that terrible thing, and all of a sudden, again, we've been taken away from the present, and we're off in a little story somewhere, which is giving us, which is making up our experience that we're having in that moment. So mental health is contentment with what is, and what is the present moment, and just really resting in it and being cool with it, and not listening to the little voice that's saying, oh yeah, but, and oh, this won't do, and you can't sit here like this forever. I mean, it's got a really good convincing tale that it tells, doesn't it?
It does. And the other thing that strikes me is, when you mentioned that we all experience this, or we all have had experiences of this, that usually when things fall away, it's really, really ordinary moments. It's like you're drinking a cup of tea and you're just looking out the window, and it's something really, really ordinary that things tend to drop away. So it's not that big kind of life event. It's not the wedding that you're looking forward to. It's not the exam that you want to pass. It's not the kind of thing that will happen that will give you that peace of mind. It tends to be, for kind of most people, just these really ordinary moments that we just fall into a peace of mind, a state of quietness. And it was really interesting for me the very first lockdown, like for those kind of first 6 weeks, I enjoyed kind of more peace of mind than I had possibly for many years. I think it was because basically every kind of thing that I had to plan, or every kind of event, it was like, because I think as human beings in the modern world, we almost live for the big event, the big sporting event, the big this, the big that, or the small this or the small that in our own lives, like the cup of tea that we're going to enjoy with this or that person at the weekend. But suddenly everything was gone, and it was just, okay, so it's just me, and all I can do is go for a walk in the park, or all I can do is just hang out with my wife and my housemate, or whatever it is, whatever that situation was. And it's really amazing how stripping down to the ordinary can be really helpful sometimes to help us experience that. And when we do have those things going on, when we do have those nice things in life that there's nothing wrong with, still remembering that it's actually the really ordinariness of life that brings us typically the most peace, the most happiness, the most joy, the most kind of that really nice sense of rightness when we're just in the flow of life. And often it can be associated with nature, because nature just has that tendency to just flow and be in harmony with its surroundings. So yeah. So and then to follow on from your second point in terms of what takes us away from that, then yes, in my experience, it's always that um, the feelings that result from the stream of thinking that we're involved in and that we're taking seriously, which could be the but thoughts or the should thoughts, or I want this person to change, or I want this situation to change. And a lot of that is very natural because we don't like people misbehaving or disastrous situations happening. But actually, we're more effective when we're accepting of those people or those situations, because when we're operating from a peaceful place, then we tend to make better decisions, and decisions that are more likely to result in more effective change. And it's completely human to get caught up in some of those stories and some of those feelings. But the more we can remember that actually that possibility of peace of mind is available in this moment and in every moment, the more likely we are to drop into that rather than seek it elsewhere in another moment or in another situation.
I think there's something about really seeing. I'm going to try and just like hammer it home again that it's our baseline, it's our default, it's what we experience in the absence of all the other stuff. So when we have those really normal moments that you're talking about, um, where we feel the sense of calm, and like you say, it could be having a cup of tea, or it could be being out in nature, or it could be something a bit more dramatic, like seeing a really beautiful sunset or something going down over the horizon. Experienced that myself the other day, and it was quite astounding. And we have a tendency in those moments to attach the good feeling to whatever it is that's going on. So we attach the good feeling to the sunset. We attach the good feeling to the spending time with a friend or something, and we lose sight of the fact that what's actually going on is that we've just reconnected to the good feeling that's there all the time in the absence of our personal thought. So when I was watching the sunset, it wasn't the sunset that was giving me the good feeling. How does it, what? So the good feeling comes across space, and I don't know how that would work, to be honest, that a sunset could give me a good feeling. No, the good feeling comes from inside of me, and the good feeling's there all the time. It's just that in the preceding couple of hours before the good sunset, I was busy up in my head. I was on my own. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about that. All this activity was going on, and then in the presence of that sunset, all of a sudden, I'm just like completely down out of my thinking. I'm not. It's like it's one of those kind of like sort of looking up at the stars, getting a bit of perspective thing, isn't it? It's like, oh yeah, it's like this sunset doesn't even care that I exist. That's one of the things I really love about nature. It's like it's very obvious that nature, like that little me that seems so important all of the time. It really, nature for me puts that into perspective, that oh no, that's actually not a thing. That's not a thing at all. That's just a thought. That's just a belief. That's just an idea. And then when I see that, so, there I am. I'm down out of my head, and I'm back in the present moment. I'm back in, and it's it's a lot more. It seems a lot more obvious to me when I'm in the present moment. When I'm out in nature. So the that good feeling is accessible to all of us all the time, because it's always there. It's always there, and it's always there in the absence of us needing to be somewhere else, of us, not making an enemy of the present moment, of not thinking that, right, this has to be different. I'll be happy when this is different, or that's different, or that person has changed, or this situation has changed.
And I think it's sometimes with the sunset, maybe what happens is that our attention simply shifts. So we're no longer attending to those, to those busy thoughts, and suddenly our attention shifts to this beautiful scene. And as our attention shifts, our thinking just quietens down, and the lack of attention to those kind of busy thoughts is what brings those just like the snow globe brings those busy thoughts to just a standstill, and then that's where the peace of mind comes. But in everyday life, there, without sunsets, because they only happen once a day, there is the possibility of just hanging out in the present moment and allowing those thoughts to dissolve a little bit, and enjoying where you are, who you're with, the sounds and the sights that are around you, without having to attend to the busy narrative, the story maker in our heads. And it's a freer and it's a lighter place, and it's a more enjoyable place. And as you said, it's a more natural place for us to live. It's our default place, as long as that narrator isn't running the show, essentially. And it's probably, to me, it's like there's a kind of spectrum. There can be the narrator who's busy, but also there can be some of my attention just on my awareness itself, or just on my surroundings. So, and then there are other times where the narrator is really capturing my attention and really bringing up a lot of different, typically uncomfortable feelings, or just bringing me out of the present, taking me into the future more. But it's, these conversations are helpful in that our attention naturally springs back more to our awareness nature, more to the present moment, and they're always helpful to me. These conversations are always helpful, or this way of reflecting is always helpful. Yeah.
Can I ask you a bit of a devil's advocate question?
Yeah, of course.
So, someone might hear this and think, well, so what they're saying is that it's obvious that sunsets are nice, looking up at the stars is nice, but and that peace of mind occurs in the present moment and being present. But what if I'm genuinely like really busy, like busy, like I've got loads on and I've got loads of work to do? How can I be present then? I don't have time. Doctors Brian and Giles, I don't have time to be sitting down quietly and getting present. What would you say to that?
So it's not dependent on the possibility that you have a chair and a quiet room to sit on. So you can be busy, and if you're accepting what is, if you're content with what is, each moment of that busyness, you can work at reasonably high speed and still be enjoying yourself. That's my experience of it anyways. As long as there isn't, if there's a story even in your mind that, oh, I really should be sitting down now in a quiet room, then what actually life is asking you to be busy now, it's asking you to do all these jobs, then that will create a sense of conflict, because half of you is engaged in the jobs and half of you is wanting to be somewhere else. Or it mightn't be sitting in a quiet room, might be, I want to be at home with my family, or I want to be watching the sunset, but I'm here in the office. But actually, it boils down to what we began with. It's about contentment with what is. and certainly there will be moments and times where something in you knows that you need to take a break, and then that is probably the time to take a break, and maybe to sit quietly, or maybe to step outdoors for a few moments. Um, but it's moment by moment, being content with what is. Um, that will be kind of the denominator, or the kind of the checkpoint, or the degree to which you're going to experience peace of mind. Um, yeah.
That's great. I when I'm working with groups, and you know, and with individuals, I've got I've got a flip chart, and on the flip chart I've got the thing, and then underneath, and then a line, and then your experience of the thing. And we conflate the two. We're not maybe listened to conversations like this before, where we've teased apart the thing and the experience of the thing, and a feeling of busyness has to come from busy thoughts. You know, if you don't have a busy mind, you don't experience a feeling of busyness. It's as simple as that. And so you can have a whole load of stuff on, you can have a huge number of things to do, but that huge number of things to do is like is a sort of a big kind of like it's a the only experience you can have of that whole load of stuff to do is now. And it's not so much the fact that there's a whole load of stuff to do, as that when you're in that moment, you've got a very, very busy mind, mostly about all the other stuff that you've got to do, rather than the thing that you're doing, you know, right here, right now. I mean, I've got several deadlines coming up now. It's like, because of the way I work, I have some regular activities that come up, and sometimes they coincide, and so I have like an intensely busy period. I've got one of those coming up right now, and I've got a writing deadline, and I've got a meeting deadline, and I've got like a Wellbeing Wednesdays deadline. Now, my experience of that can only ever happen now, like in this present moment. And I can either, you know, it makes sense to me to block some time out of the calendar. So I've made sure that nobody can make a whole load of appointments with me, because I've like got an online calendar. So I've blocked some time out of my calendar. You know, that was the action that it made sense to take when I saw all of those deadlines looming. And I've put some time aside in my diary to do those things. Now, I could, if I spend all my time thinking about those deadlines coming up and all those other things, especially when it comes to like actually sitting down, and let's say I'm sitting down to write the next article for the magazine, you know, the last thing I want on my mind when I'm sitting down writing that magazine article is the fact that tomorrow I've got a meeting deadline that I need to be preparing for and I haven't prepared for, and there's a whole load of tasks around Wellbeing Wednesdays that I need to do as well. That feeling of busyness isn't coming from all the things that I have to do. It's coming from my thinking about all the things that I have to do. You know, it's like one of my favorite props is my T and my F on a coin, and whatever we feel is a reflection of thought in the moment. You know, if all we can ever experience is one moment, is now, you know, now is the only thing that we can experience, then our felt experience of that is coming from thought. So if I've got feelings of busyness, they're coming from busy thoughts. And again, I've lost sight of the fact that mental health is contentment with what is. And what is, yeah, sure, I've got all these things coming up, but right here and right now in this present moment, I can be doing a whole load of stuff. I can be writing feverishly, but I can do that with a peaceful mind that's not being dragged out of the present moment by the narrator saying, "Oh, this isn't good enough," and "Oh, you've got this to do as well." And because that, like you say, that's a surefire way to get stuck and not be in any way productive. You know, how am I going to be able to write something of value when I'm not even there? You know, when I'm busy thinking about a whole load of other stuff. Does that make sense?
It does, Giles, and it's you know, because the devil's advocate question you asked of like people could be wondering to themselves, so what do I do? But I think you explained it really beautifully that like it's based on this kind of really, if you can really experience that all what we have is the now. You know, what we have more is a succession of nows. You know, it's a conveyor belt of nows, and if we can understand that it is just this moment and the thought feeling connection in that moment, then it just takes a lot of the doing out of it. And it's really nice to illustrate the way you did that, like we can have these, you know, these thoughts and they take us out of the now.
Yeah.
They take us into somewhere else. They take us into distress. They take us into the past and the future. And it's like the kind of linear time, but actually, you know, with linear time, there's actually something cutting through that, which is the now all the time. Um, and so it's a matter of really, really allowing the penny to drop on that. If there's any doing involved, it's allowing the penny to drop, and it's allowing it to drop rather than like making it drop.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really good. That's really good, I think, and it is so helpful to understand from a mental health point of view. You know, it really, really is, because there are so many of us, and you know, I experience it myself as much as I understand this. Like, I get lost in thought, and there's some people who are just 99% of the time lost in thought. And again, I guess to continue with the mental health conversation, over the last year, people have become more lost in thought because there's such an influx of news, there's such new information every day, and you know, we can perceive these things as potential threats or as real threats, and we can think, and then we can think about them a lot, and we can find many people to talk about them to, and then think about them even more.
Yeah.
But actually, you know, if we break it down and just say, well, you know, is it possible to be content now? You know, is it possible to be content now? And if you really, well, for me at least, if I ask myself that question, it typically comes back to an answer of yes, unless my mind is really active and persuasive and saying no. But then that tends to dissolve away as well. You know, that tends to dissolve away as well, because if you have some grasp of this understanding, you'll naturally come back to the now, to the present moment more and more. Yeah, which is where life is. Which is where life is. It isn't anywhere else.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful to draw the distinction between accepting the now, accepting what is right now, and accepting a situation. Because again, another sort of devil's advocate question might be, well, hang on, are you telling me that this, so you know, like I'm in a job that I hate. I'm in a terrible work situation. I'm being bullied by my boss. Are you telling me that I just need to put up with that? And there's a big difference between accepting or submitting to a situation, which again is in that linear time scale. It's, you know, it's in the structure of a narrative, as opposed to accepting each present moment as it comes along. Because it's only by accepting what is, and the very, very precise moment. I mean, I wrote something recently about this, and you know, I made it clear that it's like, well, you know, look around you right now, and ask the question, you know, is there anything I need, like, actually right now? And as you pointed out, you know, the answer is invariably no. You know, I'm breathing. You know, I might be hungry or thirsty. I could go and get some food. I might feel cold. I could put a jumper on. But again, that's those are physical things. So, you know, so in this present moment, is there anything that I need to do to ensure my physical safety? You know, we have to ensure our physical safety. Is there anything I need to do? If so, do it. Otherwise, just relax. You know, the only thing that's going to take you away from the peace of mind of that present moment is thought, taking you away from it.
And it may seem, I guess, unusual for people to maybe accept the simplicity of the message, because it might even sound boring, you know, like, but, and it may almost feel boring to begin with, just sitting, for example, looking at things, but it's only boring relative to how busy our minds have been.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not boring at all. It's really, really lovely.
Yeah, it's nice, beautiful.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful, and really, really interesting. Like a suggestion by someone I follow called Eckhart Tolle. He's a spiritual teacher. One of his suggestions at one stage was practice becoming comfortable in situations that your mind might label as boring.
Yeah.
And it kind of ties in with the your recent article in the magazine where you describe becoming comfortable with the present.
Yeah.
Because the present is simple. You know, it's typically really, really simple. Typically, we're sitting, we're standing, or we're lying horizontal, or, you know, we're with people or we're not. So there's typically a simplicity about the present moment, and you may have things to do, as you mentioned, but you can do those things with relatively little on your mind, or you can do those things with a lot on your mind.
Yeah.
And we all know the difference in terms of how that feels.
And what our outcome is, you know, it's like it's hugely practical. It's hugely practical. You know, you look at all of the like the productivity literature and everything, and I think there was a survey they did in business. I can't remember which it was in one of the business journals, and you know, they asked business leaders what's the key variable in terms of performance, and it was state of mind. It was clear-mindedness. It was you know, there are books and books and books written about focus and how to focus. Well, no, our natural state is focus. It's just we've been given this gift of consciousness that we can direct anywhere. And we've lost sight of the fact that most of the time our consciousness is directed towards our thinking. We've become addicted to thinking, and we believe that that's real, that that's true, and it couldn't be further from the truth. The reality is the present. Reality is now. Reality is the absence of that. And it feels really good, and it allows you to be connected to your creativity and to your problem solving and to all the good feelings, and it's only ever our thinking that gets in the way of that. And I'm conscious of time, and I think it would be good for us to point out that we've got something built into us as well. You know, so if this is about raising awareness, if this is about being more conscious of the way it is, of being more conscious of catching ourselves more frequently, should we say it that way? You know, of catching us. So, oh yeah, but I don't even notice that I'm lost in my thinking. How can I stop thinking quite so much? I don't even notice. Well, have we got something built into us that can give us a little nudge every now and again to tell us when we're up in our heads?
Yeah, like it's really interesting. You mentioned like we're almost addicted to our thinking, and I think, for want of better words, that's something we've learned. You know, so, like as a young child, like I have a 5-month-old daughter, and she's not addicted to her thinking. he tends to be very, very present, and it's lovely to be in her presence.
Mm.
I can learn a lot from her, and I am learning a lot from her. But yet we all kind of like become thinkaholics. You know, we all learn to be thinkaholics because most of the world that we grow up into, people are thinking a lot. And it's fun, I think, to compare it to other addictions. You know, like the gambler knows when his addiction is present when he's gambling, and the alcoholic knows that his addiction is present when he's drinking. And we know our thinking addiction is present when we're feeling stressful, busy feelings, and that's kind of the marker. You know, that's the marker. The heavier we feel, the busier our minds, and and all the negative feelings. There's always a corresponding thought associated with them. Um, there's always a corresponding thought, and there's so many feelings and there's so many thoughts. You know, we could go into so many of them. You know, body image thoughts: I'm too fat, I'm too thin. Other people thoughts: other people are judging me. Other people don't like me. I don't like me. Like all variations of these type of kind of universal thoughts that we get caught up in. But when they're not present, then we're here, and like, and it's really it's so interesting because, you know, like there's so many mental health conditions that result from the us following kind of down these thoughts. You know, so if we think we're too fat, we're going to restrict our eating more and more and more. But actually, we've just become caught up in that thought and kind of in a kind of, you know, just energizing that thought over and over and over again. And of course, we're going to act. If we believe that, we're going to really change things in our life, and sometimes in a dysfunctional way. But um, but it's the feeling, you know, and for me, and people who truly recover from in whatever way they recover, they learn to kind of listen to their feelings. They learn to be guided by their feelings and know when they're off track, know when their inner compass has become a little bit distorted. Um, and they learn to kind of harness that intelligence that is innate in us, but perhaps you could say we need to learn again, or we need to unlearn the kind of ways in which we've kind of innocently developed or learned.
I think so. I think it is a real unlearning, isn't it? Because what I've seen, you know, with myself and my clients and everything is that the feelings are absolutely brilliant. They're perfect. We've got this beautiful built-in mechanism. Again, you know, that if it's being felt, then it's a reflection of thought. They're one of, I think of them as thought feelings, to be honest, these days. And so anytime we're in a bad feeling, that's pointing us to the fact that we're in our heads. It's as simple as that. And we can let go. We can, you know, that in itself, that feeling, whether it's a feeling of anxiety or it's a feeling of anger, you know, something will happen. Like my daughter won't be behaving. My daughter's 7 years rather than 7 months, and you know, she'll be behaving in a way, and I'll feel myself getting angry, and it will feel entirely justified because she's not behaving the way I want her to. And then that little tap on the shoulder, the anger, it's like, hang on, buddy. You know, it's not telling me anything about what it is that she's doing. It's telling me that I'm not sitting in my mental health, that I'm not content with what is. I'm resisting what is. That's what the anger's telling me. The angry feeling is telling me that I've got some angry thinking going on. And if I step back and let go of that, again, this is like, I think of it as a tap on the shoulder. You know, the anger is a really helpful thing. It's like, oh, I'm not seeing it here. And if I actually, you know, wanted to examine it, it'd be like, oh, well, yeah, I've got a story in my head that's based on all my conditioning that of, when I was grown up and the way that my parents treated me and taught me and everything I'd learned and what I think is good and the right way to do things. And that expectation, that entirely mental construct, is not being met in this situation. And that's where my anger comes from. And so it's just, it's so helpful to just, if there's one thing that I've seen changing me over the recent years, coming across this understanding, it's that I'm way more in tune with my feelings, and I have a much lower tolerance for feeling bad and a much higher tolerance for feeling good. And you said it's an unlearning, and it is, because at first I think we're so in our heads. I think, a lot of us, before we've had it pointed out to us, it might be like 99.9% of the time we're up in our heads. And so it seems completely normal. It seems completely normal to us. And it'd be like, well, but I feel a bit ropey most of the time. I feel anxious most of the time, or I feel angry most of the time. And it's like, well, yeah, okay. So it's time to start letting go of that thinking, of just stopping believing that thinking as being true, because it's not. It is just, it's a computer mind just rifling through its old filing system of all of the little bits of information it's gathered over the years, and it's trying to work out what's going on and attach meaning to a situation where there is none on the basis of that filing system. It's doing its best, but it's not true. None of it's true. That what you hear in the narrator isn't true. We know, again, this is something that we've all experienced a lot, because we have changes of heart and changes of mind all the time. Our preferences are all over the place. 1 minute we think really strongly one way about something, and then we get a bit of a different perspective on it and we think completely differently about it. So it's like none of it's true. It's all just a mental construct. It's all just the conceptual mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. And I don't know if I have anything more to say, Giles. I think that maybe going back to that it's just a matter of, or just going back to that definition, just mental health is contentment with what is. And when we're not making up loads of stuff, that's where we tend to be. We tend to be content with what is. And we can make up so much stuff. We can be incredibly creative, incredibly creative. And it's just really nice to perhaps to make the simplicity of this message is there, I think, and hopefully people have heard it in some shape or form with this conversation. Yeah, I don't know if you had anything else that you're thinking of sharing, or
I would just, as one last bit of advice, I think I would just invite people to really start looking for those calm moments. Start looking for those moments of peace of mind, and notice that they're always in the now. Notice that they've got nothing to do with what's going on around you, and everything to do with just being present, just not being up in your head. And just start getting a bit more comfortable with that. Start getting a bit more comfortable with feeling okay, and stop talking yourself out of being okay. Stop talking yourself out of being okay. And that really is a case of just not giving the narrator as much attention.
Yeah.
Because the narrator will say, this isn't okay. this is not okay. The narrator makes an enemy of the present moment.
Mm.
And it's to ignore that and go, well, thanks for your advice.
Mm.
I actually feel pretty good right now here in this present moment. And to just start getting a bit more comfortable with that, see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fantastic, Giles. Fantastic. And yeah, becoming comfortable with the present sounds like a good take-home message, I think. Yeah.
Well, Brian, thanks very much for joining me. I look forward to the next time we chat.
Yeah, likewise, Giles.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye.